12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos by Jordan B. Peterson. Rule 5. Don't let your children do anything which makes you dislike them. Jordan Peterson says that if your kids are doing things which annoy you, then you need to step in and sort it out. If you don't, you'll get increasingly more annoyed and you'll end up taking your irritation out on them. Besides, if the behaviour is annoying you, then chances are it's annoying other people even more. Peterson's Rule 5 is about raising kids. He explains how to shape our children into flourishing and integrated members of society using reward, discipline, and punishment. A baby giraffe is on its feet and running around within an hour of being born. It doesn't take long for the little fella to be doing most of the things that your typical giraffe does. Most of this behaviour isn't learned. It's innate, hardwired into his brain. With humans, it's a very different story. When we're born, our brains are nowhere near fully developed. It takes years before an adult human can stand on his own 2 feet, independent of his parents. The unique ability to adapt to different environments has made us the dominant species, but the price we pay is the long time it takes to acquire the knowledge and learn the skills we need to survive. A behaviour which is hardwired into children is the need for adults' attention. Hanging out with attentive adults is vital for children, so they can socialise properly. If a child doesn't socialise properly, he'll find it hard to make friends, which will hold back his development. These kids end up isolated and depressed in adolescence, and resentful and even vengeful in adulthood. So it's absolutely vital to attend to your kids and teach them how to behave. But why do some parents fail to do this? Some are distracted by their phones and the internet. Others are simply irresponsible, selfish, or just lazy. Others are afraid, and yet others are misguided. Let's start with those parents who are afraid. Afraid of what, you ask? Confrontation. They want to avoid conflict with their child, so they daren't correct their behaviour. They worry that if they fight, their child may dislike or not love them, or that they may lose their child's friendship. Over the course of his childhood, a kid will hopefully have many friends, but he'll only ever have 2 parents. It's vital that parents learn to endure their kids' anger, or even hatred when necessary, and impose some discipline. Then there are those misguided parents who pander to their kids' every whim. They don't set limits or say no. They follow their kids around, trying to micromanage them. Such children throw tantrums till they get what they want, and end up manipulating their parents. These unfortunate and exhausted parents have signed up to the postmodern and supposedly enlightened idea that you should allow your child the freedom to express its individual spirit. Thereby, it can remain unstifled by the influences of parents, culture, and society. But the truth is that these influences are vital for children. Statistically speaking, 2-year-olds are the most violent human beings on the planet. They desperately need training on how to behave. Research shows that people actually improve with age rather than being corrupted. Without the rules and conventions of society, everything would fall apart. Complex social structures, like the law for example, actually reduce violence, not make it worse. A misguided attempt to allow children's nature to freely express itself results in nothing more than kids running amok. So, if we all agree that children need attention from adults, then the next question is, what sort of attention helps them to thrive? The answer? You have to make it clear to your child what's desirable and what's not. In other words, you have to lay down rules. Okay, but how do you decide on the rules? Well, it depends on the behaviour you want. And the behaviour you want is that which will allow your child to flourish and succeed outside the family. Jordan Peterson suggests a few basic ground rules. Undesirable behaviour, biting, scratching, kicking and bullying. Desired behaviour, good table manners, the ability to share, the ability to listen to adults, and a regular sleep schedule. He also says that children should look after their stuff and be good company. Once you've decided on the rules, the next step is to make sure your child follows them. If your child does something which is desirable, they can be rewarded. If they do something which is undesirable, they should be punished. Using rewards focuses on the child's positive emotions: hope, future anticipation of the reward, and satisfaction, that happy feeling of having got something you wanted. It's important to give a reward which is not too big, otherwise the next reward will have no effect, and not too small, otherwise the child won't care about getting it. Whenever you spot the desired behaviour, give the reward. The reward could be a candy, a gold star, or just praise. Punishment brings into play the negative emotions. These are anxiety, the fear of something bad, and pain, emotional or physical, when something bad actually happens. Some parents shy away from using threats and punishment, but fear and anxiety are actually essential to humans. They keep us safe, and they help us learn, even more powerfully than positive emotions. If you refuse to use punishment to discipline your child, then you're missing out on an incredibly effective way to shape their behaviour. When a rule gets broken, use a policy of minimum necessary force, with incrementally severe punishments for rule breaking. The minimum force needed to ensure compliance with a rule will vary from child to child. Start out as small as possible. For example, if your child doesn't listen, give him a hard stare. If that doesn't work, then you could take away his toy. If that doesn't work, then you could say there's no dessert for him today. And so on, escalating the punishment until he starts listening to you. Be prepared to do battle with your child, especially at first. Some kids are more stubborn-minded and independent than others. These days, many parents don't like to use punishment for fear of damaging their children emotionally. They want to protect their child from fear and pain. Ironically, being overly protective of children in this way has the opposite effect. If kids don't learn how to behave properly, society will dish out much more severe and damning punishment later on. When the child eventually goes out into the world, other people will pass much harsher judgment on him or her. Better the parents lovingly get their kids into shape than that job be left to the uncaring and judgmental wider world. Besides, danger and suffering are an unavoidable part of life. If parents shelter their kids from negative emotions, they'll be weak and unable to deal with bullying and aggression when they eventually meet it out there. Some so-called modern and progressive parents even go so far as to ask why a child has to be subject to the arbitrary dictates of adults. But the whole point is that the rules you impose on your kids are not arbitrary. They should be rules and standards which you've carefully thought out. Rules which, if followed, will produce a well-rounded young adult ready to fly the nest and thrive independently in the big wide world. So, whatever you do, don't let your children do anything which makes you dislike them.